Welcome to this explainer. We're jumping right in today because we are looking at something truly mind-bending. When you hear the phrase Daoist immortality, you probably picture ancient mystics meditating on misty mountaintops, speaking in riddles about magic potions. But what if we completely reframe that? What if those ancient texts weren't describing magic at all, but rather a highly advanced biophysical and metabolic map of the human body? Today, we are unpacking the ancient Daoist quest for immortality and looking at it strictly through the lens of modern biology, quantum mechanics, and anatomy.
So here is the big question we're exploring today. Can ancient alchemy actually rewrite our biological physics? We're going to ask whether the esoteric texts written by ancient monks were, in reality, describing a biological laboratory hidden right within our very own cells. Were they detailing a step-by-step method to hack human metabolism, optimize cellular function, and literally transmute physical matter into pure energy?
Here is our roadmap for the explainer. We'll cover the body as a laboratory, the three biological treasures, the mechanics of inner alchemy, embryonic breathing and metabolism, gestating the immortal fetus, and finally, transcending matter and energy. Let's get into it.
Section 1. The body as a laboratory, from toxic minerals to biological mastery. To really grasp this, we got to take a quick look back at the history of alchemy. Early Daoists were absolutely obsessed with longevity, but initially they were looking for it in all the wrong places before making a massive historic pivot.
Originally, these practitioners focused on Wei-Dan, or external alchemy. They used herbs, minerals, and literally highly toxic heavy metals like cinnabar to create artificial physical elixirs of life. As you can probably guess, this was incredibly dangerous and often fatal. Turns out, heavy metal poisoning isn't exactly the secret to a long life. But this crisis led to a massive pivot toward Ni-Dan, or internal alchemy. The realization was that you don't ingest the elixir, you cultivate it. The human body itself becomes the cauldron used to refine internal energy and biology. This was the true path to ancient biohacking.
Section 2. The three biological treasures. Translating ancient magic into modern biology. This is where we start mapping ancient terms directly onto modern science. You see, Ni-Dan is entirely governed by the cultivation of three vital substances.
It is absolutely wild how perfectly these mystical terms align with modern biology and anatomy. The first treasure, Jing, which the ancients called essence, maps perfectly to our endocrine secretions, hormones, and the foundational vitality in our cells. Next is Qi, known as breath or vitality. Biologically, this is our life force in action, ATP production, cellular metabolism, and fatty acid oxidation. Finally, Shen, or spirit, maps to the absolute highest level of our biology, neural synchronization, high-frequency EEG activity, and refined consciousness. We're literally bridging the gap between ancient texts and our metabolic frameworks.
Let's zero in on that first treasure for a second. Jing is the physical body's vital force. The texts note that true Jing isn't just reproductive fluids, it's the materialized essence of vital force present within all living cells. It's the biological root of life. The Taoist texts, much like traditional Chinese medicine, heavily warn that depleting your Jing through extreme stress, overwork, or excess leads directly to premature aging, illness, and physical degeneration. Preserving this Jing, that is step 1.
Section 3. Mechanics of inner alchemy, the physics of upward transmutation. So how does a practitioner actually work with these biological treasures in their internal laboratory?
While they follow this exact sequential formula. Step 1. You refine Jing, that dense cellular hormone essence, to produce Qi, metabolic energy. Step 2. You refine that Qi to produce Shen, higher neural consciousness. Step 3. Shen is refined into emptiness, or no thought. And step 4, emptiness is returned to the Tao. This sequence isn't just poetic philosophy. We are talking about applied quantum mechanics here, literally the physics of converting dense physical matter into pure, higher frequency energy. But, and this is a massive but, there's a fascinating caveat here. Just practicing physical celibacy to retain Jing, totally useless on its own. Psychologically speaking, forcing physical restraint without cultivating a mental state of emptiness to release desire just creates frustration and stress. Without mental emptiness, the retained Jing won't transmute upwards into Qi. You need both the physical retention and the psychological release to spark that metabolic reaction. Like the ancient texts say, stopping this leakage of energy is the absolutely crucial first step. If the energy isn't leaking out, it gets drawn back into the body's microcosmic orbit, and it fuels the entire transformative process. It's kind of like putting a stopper in a sink so the water can finally rise.
Section 4. Embryonic breathing and metabolism. Rewiring the body's energy consumption. Once that energy actually begins to rise, the practitioner deploys some pretty rigorous physical techniques to manipulate it. The core technique here is Tai Chi, or embryonic breathing. It's a state where the practitioner breathes like a fetus in the womb, without seemingly using the nose or mouth at all, relying entirely on internal qi. Now, I know this sounds impossible, like pure magic, but what it actually represents is the ultimate state of respiratory and metabolic efficiency, where the body relies on circulating internal energy rather than hyperventilating external air.
Let's pull back the curtain and demystify these esoteric terms using anatomy and physiology. Tumo, the generation of inner heat, is essentially intense biological thermogenesis. Taixi, that embryonic breathing we just mentioned, correlates to profound states of internal energy circulation and glymphatic waste clearance in the brain. And Bigu, or fasting by eating air, which sounds like the worst diet plan ever, is actually a state where optimized internal qi decreases the body's reliance on external nutrition. And just to prove how physically real this stuff is, get a load of this number, 38.3 degrees Celsius. Scientific studies on practitioners generating tumo, or inner heat, show they can literally force their bodies into a moderate fever zone of 38.3 degrees, raising the temperature in their fingers and toes by over 8 degrees, even while sitting in sub-zero environments. It's literally biology bending to focused internal alchemy.
Section 5. Gestating the immortal fetus, the pinnacle of internal autogestation. All of this intense biological work builds up to the climax of the Daoist practice. I know this next part sounds like pure science fiction, but it is rooted in incredible internal physiology. The Daoists call this shengtai. It's a process of symbolic pregnancy that generates a spiritually perfected duplicate of oneself within the body. Now, to be super clear here, we aren't talking about a literal baby growing in the stomach. We are talking about autogestation, the birth of an entirely new, optimized state of physiological resilience and spiritual consciousness. Biologically speaking, this immortal fetus represents peak cellular quality control. It involves superior fatty acid oxidation, acting as a redox hub to generate massive antioxidant defense. It involves the refinement of cerebrospinal fluid flowing from the solar plexus straight up to the brain. In short, the immortal aspect is essentially a state of absolute sovereignty over biological and psychological stress, allowing for cellular longevity that completely defies normal aging.
Section 6. Transcending Matter and Energy, Einstein meets Ancient Mysticism. This is where we look at the pure physics and quantum mechanics of this spiritual accomplishment.
Zhang Dai, a Song Dynasty Confucian, noted that energy permeates all things. When it coalesces and settles, it becomes matter. When it disintegrates, it returns to energy. I mean, these ancients deeply understood the quantum mechanics of the universe way, way before we ever had the vocabulary for it.
Because transmuting matter to energy, that's just physics. By turning physical cellular matter into pure neural and spiritual energy, the Daoist practitioner is literally embodying quantum mechanics and Einstein's equations of interconvertible energy. They're proving that the matter of the human body can be broken down and elevated into a much higher frequency.
And this leads to the ultimate state of transcendence. Practitioners achieve Tuo Tai Huang Yu, meaning they shuck off the mortal husk of their body. They generate the Yang Shen, an immortal spirit body capable of projecting beyond physical form. It's a state of total cellular renewal where human biology comes into perfect, frictionless alignment with cosmic law, the Tao.
Which leaves us with a pretty wild final thought. If ancient alchemists, using nothing but focused intention, breath, and profound physiological discipline, could rewrite their cellular metabolism to achieve states akin to immortality, well, what are the true limits of your own biology? How much untapped potential is lying dormant right now in your own physical form, just waiting for the right alchemy to wake it up? Thanks for joining me on this explainer.